When we talk about being a good citizen, it manifests in a lot of ways. It's volunteering, it's serving on boards, various nonprofits and for-profits. It's being a part of what's happening in your community and lending your voice, your expertise, but I think also sort of, your spirit. So I was offered this position at the University of Chicago, Booth School of Business, to become the first visiting artist and social entrepreneur. I'd never called myself a social entrepreneur before, but founding a nonprofit arts organization sort of fit that descriptor. The task I gave myself is, how can I take what we've been working on at Trey McIntyre Project, this articulation of creative process, and give it more weight and substance? So how can I be of value now to this business world? And leaving being just a dancer, and then for a decade being a dancer and an executive director, I learned that it wasn't so much the product of what I was doing or the product of what Trey McIntyre Project, the dance company, was selling, but it was our process, the methods and the creative process by which we went about discovering what we were creating, that was much, much more valuable. The challenge, and it's really hard, and it's really scary, and it's not easy, but either is making art, is to learn how to translate that creative process from over here in this sort of closed network, across this sort of unknown space, over into this sector. We don't often ask artists, dancers, in the same way we ask lawyers or surgeons to be citizens. We don't necessarily ask them to sit on boards. We began to put our dancers on these different boards, on the American Lung Cancer Association, or a local arts initiative, or the school board, to really think of these artists, again, not just as practitioners of a craft or performers, but people that hold the space for this idea of creative process. So what if they were on the team of engineers and scientists and politicians and lawyers and financiers who were reinventing a city's public transportation system? So this is part of what the city of Boston's doing with their Artist in Residence program, embedding different artists. They actually, in fact, I believe, have a choreographer embedded right now with the police. What are the skills of a dancer? And not just the hard skills, I would say the soft skills, to use the parlance of sort of business speak. And what I found was every single dancer said, yeah, I'm really good at reading the room. I'm really good at sort of understanding what's being said non-verbally. And I thought, well, maybe that's a skill that we in the arts world, it's not so much a performative skill, it's a process. It's a way of listening and understanding. And why do we not better espouse that as a value? Well, the biggest deficiency of late career professional dancers is they are not good at verbally articulating that they are good at reading the room. An artist is taught a skill. They've spent their entire life training in that way, and they want to seek value and attain value through that skill that they've been applying themselves to for so long. The hard thing to hear is, that's not enough. You have to be more. But I think the good news is, using the 80-20 rule, you can still spend 80% of your time working on your art, and it might only result in 20% of your income. But you can start to think about how you spend 20% of your time reaching other sectors and being of value, which is what I'm doing, and it might result in 80% of your income. But in leaving Trey McIntyre Project, I knew I wanted to feel differently. I wanted to wake up and not look at my phone and let my inbox and calendar dictate who I needed to be today. I can do one day of consulting and make my monthly income. Now, there's a lot of prep that I have to bring to bear to do that one day of consulting, but it frees me up to continue to live the life that I really want, to live my creative process, to wake up and really understand everything that's affecting me, and to live, to walk the talk. Artists need to think of themselves more as entrepreneurs, and they need to see themselves more as a plurality. They have all of these skills. For some, that's scary to rob themselves of their identity by not practicing their art through their medium or through their craft. Many will say, well, that's not for me. I only want to do it through the way I know how to do it. But I think there's many artists emerging, and many of them are out of the younger generation that's coming up, who say, oh yeah, I can be much more versatile. I am talking about artists that have achieved a level of mastery already in their chosen medium. Artists need to be artists. They need to be creators. Once we start to see these opportunities and these pathways open up, they need to start to figure out, as I have done, as others are doing, how they will uniquely create value in their own way.